All right. Welcome, everyone. We are really excited to have you join us today. There's just a couple of more minutes as we allow folks to come onto the webinar room. We'll be getting started here momentarily.
Sheila, I see that you said hello. I don't know if I've said hello, but good morning and thank you and your team here for all the work that you've done. I'm one of those coming in hot type of people, so I came in hot last night. So thank you for being so accommodating, and we really appreciate all the work that the TurnKey team has done. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Hello to everyone that is joining us. Folks are coming onto the webinar, and we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. All right, let's get started. I am Anissa Avon, and I am proud to welcome you guys to our Leading in a Crisis, actionable business and HR strategies for navigating crisis and chaos and change. I'm getting a notice that my internet is unstable. Jeff, are you still able to hear me okay?
Yep, I'm fine right now.
I think it was just a cue because I said chaos and crisis. But you know what? It's all about adaptability right now. And
Exactly.
that's one of the themes that you're going to share with us today. So today I am very pleased to have with us Jeff Morris with DreamSmart Academy. And our conversation is, what is your behavioral superpower? The behavioral superpowered leader. Turning crisis and uncertainty into opportunity and legacy. And before we get started, before I introduce you to Jeff, I know that all of us are juggling many priorities and many difficulties right now. And I just want to say that I'm personally keeping my peers and friends and clients and the entire country and world in my prayers and healing thoughts. And that is, in fact, one of the reasons why my team and I felt compelled to do something quickly to make a difference, to give back. We put this virtual training together. Usually it takes about 90 days to put something of this caliber together. And I'm going to get a little choked up as I speak to this because we sent out a 911 call to folks like Jeff on our team and instantaneously knew that we weren't the only ones that wanted to give back and make a difference. And so that's what this virtual training is about. It is about providing you and your team members with leadership in a crisis, resources and best practices, but also real strategies that you can implement. So I want to, let me stop that video for a moment. Jeff, will you switch to our next screen for us? I want to introduce our sponsors for the event and talk a little bit about who we are. So my name is Anissa Avon, and I'm the CEO of TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. And go ahead and go to the next one because folks are going to get enough of me over the next month for sure. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about you and DreamSmart Academy. But before you do that, I just want to say that Jeff and my team have started working together just over the last year. And Jeff's spirit of contribution, spirit of doing what's right and over delivering when it comes to making a difference, not just inside organizations, but with his other projects as well, his family and his nonprofit pursuits, etc. And on top of that, he has an expertise about our subject matter today that is unparalleled. I've had some deep conversations, and every time I'm with you, Jeff, I feel challenged to learn and grow. So tell us a little bit about DreamSmart Academy.
Well, Anissa, first let me thank you all again, the TurnKey team officially, for all of the work that you've done. I mean, to think you've put together a virtual summit with like 20 speakers is amazing. You did it in like 10 days. I can only imagine what Sheila and Eileen and all of the folks on your team have had to go through to get to this point. So that work will not go unnoticed. And I believe out of this summit, as well as some of the other work many other worthy organizations are doing, that we're going to find some new ways to interact. We're going to find some new ways for us to innovate education, how we interact with our family, how we work in our business world. So as we talk about leading those through opportunity and change and navigating uncertainty, this is a time that we can be hopeful for, because the sun will continue to shine, even though we may not see it on certain days. If we look high enough, if we go to the right altitude, we'll rise above the clouds and we'll see the sun. So a little bit about me. My background, basically, I'm a Marine Corps sniper. I was shot and left for dead when I was 22 years old. That's part of the reason I do some of the work that I've done. My little brother was shot and murdered when I was 30. And that began the work of how do we help people make wise decisions? And what role does behavior and our social and emotional development play in how we become productive citizens? And that launched a nonprofit in about 2010 or so around the area of money management. And we quickly found out that money management was not really about what we call the mechanics, spend less, save more. It was about the dynamics of money. So that began a period of really understanding how people show up emotionally with their money management styles. And we started to create profiles. So we've been studying behavior for about 10 years, Anissa. And our organization won some awards in the area of behavioral finance. We were recognized by some organizations, and that has evolved into the DreamSmart Academy, which is now a full-fledged behavioral science firm that does two things. We decode human behavior, and we make learning about behavior fun, by the way. It's not some boring subject, and we optimize performance, and that's performance in every part of our life. That's our personal life and our workplace life. So that's a little bit about DreamSmart Academy.
Beautiful, beautiful. So one of the things that you shared with me yesterday when we were talking about what we were going to learn today is specifically how our leaders, managers, our HR friends can learn a little bit about behavioral science to support their employees right now. So tell us what we're going to take away today. And for those of you that are on the call, don't hesitate to ask for what you want to get out of today. Submit your questions in chat. Throw us some curveballs. Anything that Jeff shares that you're not sure about, or you just want to bring a counter opinion, we want to hear it. If this opportunity for you isn't specifically made for you, we want you to help us make it for you. So take it away, Jeff.
Well, I'd like to open it up. Everybody, if you would take your mics off and mute. And I'd like this to be an interactive presentation, not some boring lecture.
Actually, I think because of the way that we set it up and we had over 200 people visit it, I don't think that we're going to be able to open up the mics.
No problem. So no problem. If you would
rewind.
If you have an expectation, please submit that in your chat. But I want to keep them simple because we have a limited amount of time. So as I was thinking about what a leader could take away from, I want everybody today to take at least one aha moment away. It may not be something new, but something that they can revisit and they can integrate. Because here's what we know is in leadership, there's a lot of people that know what to do, right? But very few people do what they know on a consistent basis. And it's important now more than ever that we begin to dive into or lean into some of the skills that we may have not leaned into in the past. And one of those things is the area of behavior. We know that after many years of study that behavior matters at all times for everyone, and it matters everywhere. So one of the expectations that I'd like to meet today is really share the role that behavior plays when leading others through crisis and uncertainty. Right? I have a stat that I'll share later on about how important behavior is. What we do know about behavior, Anissa, is when you're extremely stressed or extremely euphoric, that behavior inside of you becomes amplified. So we want to explore this area today in great detail if we can. We want to be able to reduce friction in relationships, especially during times of crisis and uncertainty, so that we can improve our own individual relationships. Because we're dealing with behavior, we're all at home now, we have to be able to deal with individual family members and we want to be able to deal with our team members and our overall organizational performance. So we're going to turn crisis and uncertainty into opportunity and legacy. Those are some of the expectations. Any thoughts or ideas, questions from what people can expect?
So no, I think that you're going to cover it. I do know that some of the folks that I've spoken to in trying to design meaningful, relevant talks for the crisis that we're experiencing are specifically about what you started with. You know, knowing how to manage my emotions is very different than actually managing my emotions. And then teaching how to manage emotions, or teaching how to be resourceful in the middle of this chaos is very different than having that learning stick or helping our leaders to actually implement the communication changes or to pivot the strategy or to manage those emotions. So I'm hopeful that you'll have some opportunity today to really dig into the concepts, the science, and then some specific actionable strategies that people can take away.
So we'll be able to do all of those things. And if I stay on one subject too long, please let me know, Anissa, so we can move right along. I'm a Marine, so you know I'm going to want to be on point. And I'm looking at my clock here as we continue to move forward. But some of the outcomes are you are going to receive some actionable strategies to reduce friction in the home and in the workplace, because it's important right now. And the one thing that can slow a team down and limit its performance is the area of behavioral indifference. So we want to give strategies and tools that help align those differences so that people can move forward and optimize their performance. And then we want to give the ABCs of the Behaviorally SuperPowered Leader. They show up in a different way than most. And I've really tried to make it very simple. And so we want to get to the ABCs of behavioral leadership. But I really want to start the webinar off with this foundational truth. And this is a guiding light for how we conduct our business, how we conduct our personal lives, and what drives our business and why we exist. And that's around the area of the foundational truth is behavior and social emotional intelligence. Both of those things combined drive life, relationship, and financial choices. It's a foundational truth for everybody. And if you look at my line beneath that, this is a foundational truth for all people, regardless of age, wealth, culture, position, or situation. And this has been a statement that has been formed after more than 30 years of research with our behavioral research partners from around the world, validated in about 125 countries and over 30 languages. And one thing that we understand is behavior travels, right? We'll share our behavioral universe here pretty soon. And we know that certain behavioral temperaments are the same here in America. They're the same in Europe. They're going to be the same in China. They're going to be the same in Africa. So behavior travels. If you see our tagline, behavior matters. It's one of the most critical parts of what we do in our everyday life. And if we don't believe that matters, Anissa, let's think about some of the behaviors that we've seen when we visit grocery stores, when shopping, around trying to buy just something as simple as toilet paper, right?
I can tell you that I've fallen my own victim to my own fears. I went, frankly, for a necessity, for a bottle of wine. And when the store's shelves were empty, I felt like I had to buy things I didn't need. And I did. I bought stuff. Whatever was left on the shelf, we got one. And that is something that I think can be, that same concept is going to be applied not just at the grocery store. So please continue your point, and I think we can all relate.
Sure. And I'll just give you really quickly the behavior superpower. Well, let's answer the poll question first. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's break up some of the talk, and let's have a poll question. And people can put this most likely in their chat box, correct? That's what I'm thinking. If we have do we have a poll?
Yeah, I think that my team may have been able to this morning get that in the poll. So if I can launch it, I'm going to try right now. Oh, I can. This is poll number 1, right?
Right.
Let's see.
And the question is, who am I? And what we want you to do is describe yourself in 3 words. Any 3 adjectives that you can think of that would describe you, please share, because we're going to have some fun with this. There's a couple of.
It looks like I have one of your other polls. I've got the Jeff's, superpower one. So let's
Okay.
do this one in the chat box. So please continue.
So if you can put in your chat box, Anissa, you can read some of those chats. Let's answer the question really quickly. Who am I? How would you describe yourself in 3 adjectives? And however you would like to do that, that would be great. And when we start to get some of those responses.
We have a friend that said integrity, empathy, courage.
Beautiful. Those are 3 great words, by the way. Whoever put that in there, that's awesome.
I think my word is authentic.
Authentic. That's a beautiful word as well.
We have a friend that said tenacious, fun, powerful.
That's awesome.
Energetic. Another friend that said energetic initiator. Jackie has said compassionate, insightful, collaborative. Frank has said leader, trustworthy, passionate. Angel has said resilient, open, kind. Dee Dee says passionate, initiator, risk taker.
Who was that?
Says that was Dee Dee.
Okay, Dee Dee Sanchez. Hey, girl.
Yeah. We've got Mary says intelligent, caring, respectful. Bill says consistent, honest, direct.
Those are all great words. Those are all great key words. And some of the folks' names I do recognize, and I can tell you for sure that they're exceptional leaders. And the fact that they're on this call says a lot about who they are, because even the greatest of leaders learn from other leaders, right? The greatest of leaders have to be great followers and great learners. So thank everyone for being on the call, and thank you for that poll question. Those 3 words I heard authenticity, I heard integrity, I heard tenacious, and those are all characteristics of the behaviorally superpowered leader. So here's a fun graphic right here. Who is the behaviorally superpowered leader, and what do they look like? Can you pick out the behaviorally superpowered leader in this?
I would
graphic?
say every single one of them.
Every single one of these people are behaviorally superpowered, right? Because behaviorally superpowered leaders are everyday people, ordinary people that do extraordinary things. And I always say that leaders, they're leaders and they're good leaders. Good leaders can help manage crisis and change, but those who are behaviorally superpowered leaders take crisis and uncertainty, and they see the opportunity in that. As I said earlier in our conversation, Anissa, this circumstance that we find ourselves in is going to generate new businesses. It's going to create creativity and strategy that we haven't seen before. It's going to innovate education. It's going to change the way the landscape of how we live, how we interact with people on every level. So every single one of these people are behaviorally superpowered leaders. And I want to give you not all of the ABCs, but I'm going to give you the C's of the behaviorally superpowered leader. So this is one of the strategies, something that you can write down. I don't have it on the graph here, but the 7 characteristics of the behaviorally superpowered leader. The first one I want to talk about is confidence. The behaviorally superpowered leader shows up in their everyday world, whether it be in their family life, their individual life, or in their group or organization. They show up confident. That's not to say that they don't have fear, they don't have worry, anxiety, or doubt, but they don't let those
Hey, Jeff, your audio just went low.
Okay.
Yeah, stay close. Try that again.
Stay close. Right. So the behavioral superpowered leader shows up confident. They don't shy away from crisis or uncertainty.
Hey, friends on the webinar, if you guys are having a challenge hearing Jeff, just let me know. Jeff, you may have to project a little bit more because we can hear you, but something happened to the audio and it's not quite as loud as it once was.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me clearer now?
Yes. Use your stage voice.
Got it. Okay. I'll project a little bit.
That's perfect. That's great.
Right. So I'll give the 7 C's again. The first C is confident. And in the animal kingdom, predators sense fear in the prey that they're about to chase. And that triggers a response from the predator. Same thing in our human behavior. Humans can't smell fear, but they can observe fear. right? So when a leader shows up and they're anxious and they're doubtful and they're worried, that behavior will be reflected back in their family life, be reflected back in their work life. It'll be reflected back in their personal relationships. So when you show up confident, you give people an opportunity to have hope and belief, and not only yourself, but belief in themselves as well. The second characteristic in the C's is going to be the convictions that this leader has. They're going to have certain convictions that they're going to stick to regardless of crisis or uncertainty. And then they're going to be committed to those convictions. Commitment just means that I've given my word, a pledge to this cause, like a commitment to live out this conviction long past, long past when I've just made the commitment. So commitment lasts a long time, and it has to come over a period of seasons. That's how we know who's committed, right? Those type of leaders get counsel, right? When you have to plan, you have to get honest counsel about where you are. And the wisest of leaders, the behaviorally superpowered leader, will get counsel. And then if they need to compromise, and this is the fifth C, Anissa, they will have to compromise.
Oh, wait, what was the fourth one? Counsel? Okay, I'm writing
Counsel,
it down.
right? Counsel. And then the fifth one is they're willing to compromise. They're convicted, right? And they're committed, but they're wise enough to understand that I have to manage this COVID-19 crisis today. But I also have to keep my eye on the imagined future at the same time and provide tools and resources and not panic in this. So they're going to be able to compromise what we need to do today, but also make sure that they can still stay in alignment for what they need to do for their imagined future. It's something it's a balancing act that very few can do. That's why this leader's special, right? And then they show up courageous, just like they're confident. Courageous leadership is needed in a time like this. It's imperative that those who have these gifts and those who have been through this type of crisis before lead. And leaders just lead, whether in crisis or in good times or bad times, but especially at a time like this, you have to show up courageous every day, strong and courageous. And the last thing is they're people of character, right? The summation of who they are, right? Their mindsets, their motivations, their money habits, the experiences, expectations, all those things make up that unique character. And that character shows up and gives people hope in the leader, and gives people hope in themselves, and gives people hope that there'll be a brighter future tomorrow. So this graphic is very powerful because we all look like the behavior superpowered leader.
You know, I do have, you may get to this in a little bit, so you don't have to answer this right now, but I am struggling a little bit with the very first C. We all know people who act confident and even have the ego that convinces them that they have every reason to be confident, right? Then we all know people who are confident that don't act or should be confident because they are competent human beings and they're unable to foster confidence about it. But in this situation, where I'm struggling with is how exactly are leaders supposed to put forth confidence in our plans when our plans are ambiguous, uncertain, inaccurate, requiring us to pivot. What we thought we were going to do yesterday is no longer what we're going to do at 9:01. So are you going to share with us, how exactly is a person in this moment supposed to cultivate these qualities in response to our crisis?
So as leaders, we would like to have certainty, right? We would like to know that our plans will work out. But the leaders, especially those leaders who are transformative, are comfortable in the gray zone. They're comfortable in times of uncertainty. And again, it's not because they know that they know and they have all the answers, is that they're confident in their ability to lead. Most likely, they've led through this situation before, right? I've experienced difficult times in my personal life, right? That allowed me to show up confident because I was able to navigate through a difficult time before, right? I know that I can navigate through this very difficult time because I've been here. It's a memory muscle for me. So I don't panic, I don't fear, right? Here's the A's of the ABCs. The confident leader or the behaviorally superpowered leader, there's 3 A's. They assess the situation. They take a sober assessment. At this time, we can't put our head in the sand, right? We have to take an honest and a sober assessment of where we are, even if that means that we have to be brutal in that assessment, because we have to know where we are. The second A is we have to analyze the data that we get back from that assessment. And what we can do as leaders is sometimes we'll stay stuck in the analysis period. And if we have to move through crisis and opportunity, we can calculate the risk, but we can't eliminate risk, right? And we're going to talk about that in our Behavior Superpower profile. When I show that, there's an element of risk versus daring versus careful, right? So you want to know who on your team is willing to take risk and who on your team is not really, they're risk adverse. And that's one of the importance of knowing how we show up behaviorally every single day. So what's the mindset of this behavioral leader? They see opportunity here. This peanut, George Washington Carver was given a peanut. And a really quick poll question, if not a poll question, but if someone could share how many uses of the peanut, that we currently have today as a result of George Washington Carver's work, just put it into the chat box, guess the number real quick. How many
uses? That's great.
We'll give 30 seconds real quick and I'm counting.
You know what I did, Jeff? I was typing out the 3 A's and either I saw a squirrel and didn't catch the third A, but I need the bookend. What was the third A?
So the last A is adapt. They adapt to the situation.
Okay.
And in the Marine Corps, we used to say adapt and overcome, right? Whatever today's situation is, if it's difficult, we'll deal with today's difficult situation today. Tomorrow, we'll deal with the impossible. So you'll have to adapt to the ever-changing landscape. And leaders, this behaviorally superpowered leader, they'll be willing to pivot because the landscape's going to always be changing, right? When we get in the gray zone, we'll sit and we'll do these 3 A's, assess, analyze, and adapt, and we'll get to the next objective. And once we get to that next pivot point, we'll know better what to do than we know today. But we have to keep moving forward in our movement.
Yeah. So we have in answers 300 plus uses of the peanuts. We have hundreds, 20, and all I wrote was what? Not just peanut butter?
So here's the fact that peanut butter came from peanuts is not an invention of George Washington Carver. It's not. But he did have over 300 uses for the peanut that he was given. So somebody must have Googled that.
That's a mighty peanut.
Right? One of you cheated and found the answer, but it is 300. There's over 300 uses for the peanut today. So I view the COVID-19 crisis as a peanut. So the question is, what is your peanut today? Right? What are you having to re-examine, rethink, reorganize, plan again, assess, analyze, and adapt to so that you can create uses, new use cases for who you are and what you do. Does that make sense?
It does. And something that you said earlier, I just want to, we're going to launch this poll. So introduce the poll, and then I want to go back to something you said a little earlier.
Sure. The poll question number 2 is, who do others say I am? And the reason I ask this question is, when we're looking at our 360-degree view of what leadership is, it's important that we get honest feedback from our peers, our subordinates, and our superiors. And when we look at the workplace today, we see those who aren't used to getting feedback, even negative feedback. And it's one of the reasons that new hires fail in the current business climate is because they haven't been coached, they haven't been mentored, they're not socially, emotionally mature and competent. And so I asked this question because we as leaders need to have that honest feedback, a sober assessment of who we are.
Frank says a general.
General Frank Crump, that's my dude right there.
Who do others say I am? Friend says direct, tenacious, protective.
Love it.
Sheila says kind, caring, fast.
I'm going to guess that Sheila's behavioral superpower, she has not completed that. I got to think she's probably in that influencer, community builder, relationship builder, in that sphere where she just connects with people naturally,
Yeah.
as you do, Anissa.
Thank you.
So that's very, very powerful. Really quickly about Frank Crump. I call him the general. And when you see his profile, I won't show it today, but he's perfectly balanced in his risk versus relationship area, and his daring versus careful, and his abstract and concrete. He's the type of leader that will not become emotional in crisis. He may have emotion, but he'll be able to put that emotion down and make the best decision. And as I coach people, whether it be kids, teens, on the basketball court, or we're dealing with executives, the person that can keep their emotions in check the longest will make the best decision. I'm going to repeat it again. The person that keeps their emotions in check the longest will make the best decisions, whether it be for their personal life or in their workplace. So it's not that we have to void ourselves of emotions and be a robot. It's about what systems in place do we have to navigate when we begin to show that behavioral superpower when we're stressed, especially. That's why we have to know this, so that you know how that you're going to, so you know how you're going to show up, and others know how you're going to show up. If you're opposed to risk, we want to show in our assessment that we've done all that we can to minimize the risk, but we can't eliminate the risk. So very cool things that we're going to learn here in just a little bit. But thank you all for sharing how your peers see yourself, because it's an important question. And I'm looking at the time as well.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. I'm trying to get through this here. And here is outside of our foundational truth of that behavior and social and emotional intelligence drives life, relationship, and financial decision. Here's another foundational truth, as we all have a behavioral fingerprint. And at the DreamSmart Academy, we've created this movement around your behavioral superpower, right? Because we want people to know that they have unique gifts, talents, and abilities. And this fingerprint makes you unique. Just like your real fingerprint makes you like no other person on the planet, your behavioral fingerprint makes you 1 in 4 trillion. There's no one else on the planet that has your exact behavioral profile. It makes people feel special. And when we start dealing with human solutions, one of the things there's 2 things that people, how we connect with people. And one of the things that we can do is make people feel and treat them unique. People love it when they can have something that they know is special about them. And the other need is that to make people feel safe, an environment that's conducive for learning, an environment that's empathetic, someone said earlier. These are all important as we start to deal with who people are at the root level, at the behavioral levels. So our behavioral fingerprint, as you see here, our behavioral superpower is a result of our life experiences. What things have you lived through? When you talk about being confident, the more adversity and difficulty that you've been able to lead through and navigate, right? The more comfortable you are in the gray zone, or when bullets are flying, or when you have to make a difficult business decision, as a lot of us are doing right now, right? Expectations, what are we expecting out of life? We know we get what we focus on, Anissa, right? So if we focus on the negative, we get negative. If we focus on hope, we tend to come up with creative solutions and innovation. So expectations, what are we expecting out of this crisis that we have to lead right now, right? In education, not just master's degrees or PhDs, but what life lessons have you learned? How resilient are you? How do you manage anger? How do you manage these emotions that we need to keep in check? It's a life's education, not just GED or PhD. What are the environment?
You're really specifically talking about understanding who we are and understanding who our team is in order to help them move the needle in times of crisis. And obviously this is relevant to any part of our lives, but because we're specifically talking about leading in a crisis, am I mapping behaviors with communication because a lot of us are talking right now about communication. Everything is about communication. You want your team to understand what the business priorities are. It's about communication. how does that map with behaviors?
So again, how you show up will show up as part of your behavior fingerprint, your communication preferences. If you see this here, and there's going to be a slide that shows the behavioral superpowers, how it maps communication, and it maps your behavioral preferences, your behavioral talents, and it shows up in everyday workplace. And when we understand this fingerprint for everybody on our team, we can align and we can match people according to their behavioral talent and their communication preferences, so that you can grow your team and align your team and move it forward. So we're going to talk about that just in a little bit, but it's important that we know that everybody has a fingerprint, and we as a leader, when we can understand what that fingerprint is, we can align behavioral difference and we can keep our team moving forward. And here's why this is important, Anissa. Behavior causes 87%. I wanted to ask this question before I got to this slide, but it causes 87% of performance in life and in business, right? Where communication exists, so does behavior. Where there's two or more people, there's a relationship that could be impactful or can be denigrated because of things like behavior and communication, right? It's very powerful when we think about all of the projects that we've been a part of, right? In our family, when we think about every part of our life, if something went really good, it was usually because there was impactful and effective communication, and there was appropriate behavior, right? Can we think of anything in the past 12 months to 15 months just grab a headline from the news where there was inappropriate behavior, and maybe a person that was highly respected at one point, because of the behavior, they were no longer respected? Yeah. There's many headlines like that, right?
So many.
Yeah. Right? So 87%, this is a huge number. So it's important that we do have behavioral tools that can help us understand how I show up behaviorally and how others will show up behaviorally.
Define for me the difference between, what's the gap here between communication and what they're communicating and what they're behaving, how they're behaving.
Sure. If someone is cautious, and I'm going to do this in a slide because I have my behavioral superpower and I have yours. But if someone is cautious in their behavior and there's someone who is outgoing in their behavior, there's going to be some friction there.
Okay.
Right. And how they're going to communicate, the person that's, highly outgoing is going to communicate differently than the person who's very reserved and cautious and planned. So there has to be an alignment of that, right? And empathy toward each other to understand that I'm going to be different than you, but we have to come to a common ground so we can move people and move our objective forward. It's a unique talent that we're growing, and all of us can grow as we become these behaviorally superpowered leaders. But I want to introduce you real quickly to the 10 behavioral superpowers in our behavioral superpower universe. There's adapters, there's community builders, there's engagers, facilitators, influencers, initiators, reflective thinkers. You see all of those things there. But look at this quote. To know yourself, you must sacrifice the illusion that you already do. The worst person to judge who we are is the person that looks at you in the mirror every day. We're our own worst judge, right? So we have to have, again, honest and sober assessment around who we are. But we certainly want to know who we are so that we can do what we are. And that's the importance of owning and knowing your behavior. So the next poll question I have is this. You see all of these behavioral superpowers.
Stay on this for just a moment.
Yep.
These superpowers in the summit, the webinar just before yours with Gaurav Bala, we were talking about how to have your team members, not just those with rank, begin to support the process of change, begin to cultivate a culture of resourcefulness and resilience. And one of the things that we didn't quite get to was how to do that. And this list right here brings forth how HR professionals and other leaders can begin to bring forth the strengths, the superpowers of their team. And what I'm taking away from this conversation is when you recognize that someone is a facilitator, putting them in a role of where they in fact have to be reflective is not in this situation isn't necessarily using their superpowers.
Sure.
And encouraging a strategist to be on the strategy team, even if they don't have rank, is in fact how HR folks are going to help the employees pull through this as a community, as a network, collaboratively. And that's where I'm making the connections here, I think.
Well, let me just share that innovation usually comes from the bottom up, right?
Well
in
said.
an organization, right? Strategy usually comes from the top down. As I share with, I don't think I probably shared with you, but there was a situation at the Air Force Academy this past week where 2 people took their life, 2 young men, right? Because of poor strategy. So here's what they had to do. They had to go to the cadets and go, what's not working here, right? They gave them the innovation needed to move the crisis forward, not from the top down. So innovation is always driven from the bottom up. So to answer your last question, if they really want to continue to move their crisis forward, they would huddle up with those who apparently have no rank, but those are the most important people because they're on the floor every day, so they drive innovation.
Very good.
Right? So this third poll question, so we keep moving, is out of all these superpowers you just saw, and if you know my behavioral superpower, some of you do on the call, don't share it.
This is the one that I actually got into the poll. So I'm going to launch that poll and you guys can select his GIF's superpower. This is what's cool about, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but sorry, I got super excited. Well, what's super cool about this 20 minutes or 30 minutes that we've spent with you, those are on the call. You now have the ability to, in fact, select some of his superpowers. And the critical piece about that is that's what we're asking folks to do back on at the office or at the remote office in the videos, so to speak. Because that's what's going to be required to understand your team, to understand who you are in order to bring forth the greatest influence and greatest superpowers in your organization, I think is what you're sharing with us.
Sure. And at the end, I have a slide that shows the importance of behavioral alignment, how it impacts bottom line performance, how it impacts individual performance, and how it impacts overall team performance. You're going to be stunned at some of the numbers that I'm going to share with you when we finish here. Anyone?
So yeah, we've got a few guessers: adapter, influencer, reflective thinker, strategist.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to close it out. Tell us who you are.
So I am a reflective thinker, right? And my behavioral superpower. And I'm going to stop this share really quickly. And I'm going to share another screen, Anissa.
Okay.
Let me stop this.
By the way, we want to start wrapping up in about 5-6 minutes. So we're good.
Yep, we will. We'll do this very quickly. So I'll do that later. So let me go back to this so that we can finish up. I'm looking at the time too. So I am a reflective thinker, and we can talk offline about what that means. Some of you know what that means to me. And let me see here. Let me get this going. Everybody can see my screen again?
Yes.
All right. So as we wrap up, Anissa, here's what's important to know, right? When we know if we're a strategist, an initiator, or an influencer, we can see we're a little bit on the results side of the screen. When we look here at this, if we look at the behavior superpower, if we look at that very first quadrant, strategists and initiators and influencers, we see that on this axis, on the very left side, there's results-oriented people, and there's very fast-paced people. So if you're a strategist, an initiator, or an influencer, you're going to be results-focused, and you're going to be very fast-paced, right? On the other piece of that, other side of that, you have people who are fast-paced and relationship-oriented, and those are going to be the engagers. They're going to be influencers to a point, but engagers and community builders. They're going to be fast-paced and relationship-oriented. Then in this 6 o'clock quadrant, 3 to 6 o'clock quadrant, you're going to see relationship builder, facilitator, and adapter. They're going to move very carefully. they're going to be very cautious in their movement, and they're going to focus on relationships. And then in this fourth quadrant here, which is where I'm located, is results. And I move very carefully. I'm stylish, adapters, stylish thinkers and reflective thinkers. They move carefully, and they can be seen as guarded, but I'm looking and listening to every word that you say, so I can reflect very carefully my response to you. That's why my deck was late getting out to you, because I'm trying to plan the responses for this meeting, because I want to make sure that I get have the impact that I want to. So this is a little bit about our behavioral superpower graph. The communication: are we goal setters, right? Are we lifestyle communicators? Are we information? I happen to be on my communication superpower. I'm an information guy, which makes sense because I'm going to move very carefully and I want to be results oriented. So my superpower here, I'm going to show up and I'm going to want to analyze. I'm going to want the facts. I want you to be transparent, and I want tangible items if you can give those to me. So to answer your question about how communication shows up with the behavioral superpowers, they cross connect and they help us align so that we can move not only our individual performance, but our team performance as well.
Will you say that last part again? The audio started to go soft again.
So the behavioral superpower and the communication superpower, they marry each other.
Yeah.
So if I'm this reflective thinker, so I'm going to move very carefully, and I'm going to be very results oriented. So in my communication style, that's going to show up in the fact that I want to analyze, because I'm going to move very carefully. It's going to show up in the fact that I want the facts. I want you to be transparent with your communication with me, and I need something tangible that I can analyze. So these two align my behavioral superpower and my communication superpower to make me unique. And when I, as a leader, understand that about myself, and I can also understand this about my teammates, even our family members, this makes for behavioral to mitigate the role that behavioral indifference plays, to reduce friction. That makes sense?
It does. And just to draw something on this very quickly is that as we take this work back to our organizations, and specifically for enabling HR and leaders to recognize who their teams are, it's also but really what you've shared with us, it's also really critical that we understand our own tendencies and our own behavioral choices. For example, as you had mentioned earlier, just because someone can do something doesn't mean that's their superpower. So a strategist, for example, may not be the best one to understand what the community needs, or vice versa. And so that collaboration with employees at all levels is critical.
It's critical, right? And it gives this superpower language gives you one language around behavior. So whether you're a CEO who's an initiator, or if you're on the showroom floor and you're an initiator, initiators initiate. It doesn't matter. It may be a level of experience that's different, but they initiate, right? So it's a common language for the workplace, and it helps you align the difference so you can move forward with your most critical areas of need. Here we have all of the different dimensions: leadership development, workplace operations, team performance. You can see all of those things and why behavior matters. And here's our quote up top, Anissa: know who you are, be who you are, and do what you are. So if you're an initiator, don't try to be a strategist, right? If you're an elephant, don't try to be a zebra. Just be and do what you are. It's very important.
I got a quick question. We have a technical question. Someone was saying that there was something obscuring the slide. You guys let me know if we have corrected that or not. All right, it's corrected, so we're good to go. So please continue, Jeff.
So this is just some reflective questions, and I can send this deck to anybody that wants it, about how you show up about how you show up as a behaviorally superpowered leader. As a leader, I want to always give you something to reflect on, something to chew on, something to make you grow. And looking at these questions is one of the ways that you can begin to think about how you show up, and not just show up, but how you show up behaviorally in answering these questions. Last thing, Anissa, what's the impact if you're an HR professional, consultant, trainer, when you can align behavioral indifference and align communication preferences, risk behaviors, and the things that we know to have in our behavior superpowers, what they uncover, we see a increase in bottom line revenue of 23%. We see individual employee productivity up 40%, and we see overall team productivity by almost 70%. Those are incredible numbers when we just think about how simple it can be to get this behavioral alignment so that you can move forward, because you just have people who are now connected to who they are and they can do what they are. And the last slide, Anissa, as we wrap up here, I'll talk about perspective. What we see is what we believe. The sun is always shining. We just got to rise high enough to go see it, right? So take your peanut that you've been given in this crisis and take it so that, and look for the opportunity in the crisis. And if you manage this well, you'll build your legacy, something that people won't ever forget. You'll always be remembered for how you connected with people, how you empowered people during this time. And that's my last slide, Anissa, as we can wrap up here. And as our folks can connect and contact you.
Well, and some folks are curious about the assessment, and I know that you have offered a very generous way for participants to gain more information on their own behavior superpowers.
Sure. So all participants will receive a complimentary discovery link to complete their behavior superpower exercise. I had 68 people on an email list. If there's more, I'll check to see. But any organization or coach or trainer can receive a free 60-day trial. Anissa, if you want to align your team, we can help align your team with these behavioral insights. We have a great offer from our partner of a 60-day trial. And then we're going to have 10 uncoverings. That's a 30-minute session with me that gives you more in-depth detail about your particular profile. And we'll talk about how this makes you unique and how you can connect with others. And we're going to do this it's going to be it's going to be fun. We're going to record a call. We're going to take 10 names from those 68 or 70 names that we have on the list. We're going to record a Zoom call, and we'll announce our call via LinkedIn and via email for those folks that have those 10 uncoverings. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. Anissa, it's been fun today. Any other questions before we wrap up, before I leave?
Yeah, so I do have a question going back to how to apply this right now, particularly if we just take that first C in confidence.
Say it again for me.
So the question is related back to the C's that you shared with us, and particularly the first one is about confidence. And
Sure.
a leader is going to have to model that they are confident in the decisions that the organization is making,
Sure.
while simultaneously being transparent and authentic enough to represent that no decision that we make today is guaranteed to be the decision we stick with. So
Absolutely.
how does someone learn to adapt between their superpower, for example, and perhaps someone else, another superpower, in order to rise to the occasion of this moment?
For me, it's about the law of equipping. Me as a leader, I do want to recognize behavioral indifference, and we want to be empathetic to that. And as I said earlier, a good leader can equip their followers with belief in the leader themselves, right? A great leader can equip those that follow them with belief in themselves and the leader. But those who will rise to the occasion today, right, will be those leaders who equip those that they've equipped to be equippers of the future, right? So during this time, they're uncertain, they're living in a gray zone, but they can empower people, they can mentor that person of behavioral indifference and help them gain some perspective in that, and they can continue to model that behavior so that a person of a different behavior doesn't disengage and go off the ramp or the rails because they haven't been connected with, which is what we saw at the Air Force Academy, right? It's kind of what we saw. So we want to equip people during this time. We want to engage and probably lean into people. And again, knowing this behavioral superpower, someone that may not be result oriented or relationship oriented. If they're not relationship oriented, you may have to lean into them because they may be one that's quiet during this time, and you have to connect to keep them engaged, right? It's a lot of things that we could cover here, but that was a great question.
Well, that's very helpful. I want to share with folks, again, how to connect with Jeff. It's Jeff Morris at DreamSmart Academy. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
And I also want to, we've had some folks that just say, I want to share some of their takeaways. One of them was, how many ways might I offer my peanut for my audience to get involved? Great insights. Some folks did have an opportunity to take the assessment that you shared, and they mentioned that their results don't necessarily align. So perhaps they can reach out to you to have some clarity there.
Yep, they can. And that's often, it's not unusual that folks feel that this alignment is not correct, right? And it's in the way that the assessment is designed. We can get into more detail when I talk with that person personally. I'd love to talk to them.
Perfect. And as we wrap up today, I do want to say that you guys can see my screen now, right? The Leading in a Crisis. In just a few minutes, we're going to be meeting with Ray Weaver on emotional intelligence and his CIA model of managing emotions. Every single day right now, almost every hour, we are adding more experts. We have 40 plus and counting. In fact, there's only 20 something up live on the site right now, but we're bringing this to you every Wednesday and Thursday throughout April. I am grateful that you're selected to spend your time with us. Do let us know if there are topics that we haven't covered that you would like for us to attend to. Also, as a part of our giving back, we have trainers around the country that are doing virtual training events specific and unique to our crisis at hand, related to crisis management, emotional intelligence, neuro leadership, managing conflict through times of crisis, business continuity, strategic foresight, revising your strategic plan, etc. And all of them have volunteered to do our training work at buy one, get one specials. So I am grateful that you guys were here today. Do let us know your feedback. And Jeff, thank you very much. I'm grateful for our time together and for your contribution. Your superpowers are pretty awesome.
Thank you, Anissa. I'm honored that you would have me. Everybody, thank you on the call. Please reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you guys. Have a great day and stay safe and healthy.
Awesome.